6 o'clock. So according to my clock, it is now 6 o'clock. I'd like to get rolling because we have a very tight agenda. So cameras on, microphones open. Welcome everybody. The objectives for this evening, the first two are fairly consistent, to get an update on the comments that have been submitted via the online comment form and help you all get to know each other as time goes along. We're going to continue the effort of drafting the principles that we're putting together for the purpose of allowing you to evaluate the recommendations. So the purpose of the principles are just to remind you of sort of what you're trying to accomplish. And then we'll also continue working on draft recommendations for potential communication to Fish and Game. So, well, that didn't work. There we go. Just a reminder about the ground rules that we've agreed to pay attention to what we're talking about on the agenda and make your contributions. Get things said and off your chest when it's the right time. Know that the group was designed to have a diversity of perspectives, so we want to demonstrate appreciation for the fact that not everybody agrees with each other all the time, but maintaining a respectful space while we do that. So, any questions from anybody about the agenda for this evening? Okay. So we'll just do a quick introduction around the room, just, you know, one, maybe two sentences, how you're showing up today, what's on your mind. And I will call on people as I see them on the screen, and then we'll see if we missed anybody. Dustin's been on the longest, so I'm gonna let him go first. Oh, I would point out, we have two people that are gonna, I don't think they're here yet. Nathan Guy and Jeremiah Manny are both in transit. So if they join us, they'll be on the telephone. And Tim Frost is running a little bit late. So that's what we know about who's going to show up tonight. So with that, Dustin.
So I guess the one thing that I would probably say has been most on my mind over the last month since our last one, or a couple weeks, whatever it's been, feels like a month, is I feel like a lot of the recommendations and the structures and stuff that we're thinking about putting up there and the ones that we're discussing seem to have more of a human influence than an animal population influence on it. And I'm afraid that we're looking at the technology as being a crutch and or an extra opportunity, when I think a lot of the technology, really what it's going to boil down to, is managing the actual numbers of animals as opposed to the number of people. And maybe I'm just off base, but that's what's been popping in and out of my head a lot.
Well, thank you for that. Kim.
You're muted.
I said I'm looking forward to delving a little bit deeper, because after looking at that survey, or that little survey you sent out about what we had worked on at the last meeting, was very interesting. We're pretty close on a lot of the things, but not all of them. So I'm just looking forward to working with people, especially those that might have a little bit different take than me, and just getting to the bottom of that and coming up with something.
Nice, thank you. How about you, Alex?
Me? All right. I guess I'm just looking forward to getting these things refined. It looks like we put in a lot of work last meeting, but still a little bit of work to do.
Yeah, we do. Okay, how about you, Tal?
Hey, I'm just looking forward to, keeping up the work. We got a lot done last week, I thought. So, looking forward to it.
Okay. How about you, Bryce?
Yeah, Bryce Oldmeyer from Chalice. Just looking forward to polishing up some of the work we did last meeting, as well as diving into a couple more topics.
Okay. How about you, Jason?
Yeah, I'm just hoping to get this thing wrapped up and behind us and have the voice of the people heard.
Rising to that challenge of representing everybody, huh?
You know,
Yeah. How about you, Rob?
I'm eager to get started tonight. I've really enjoyed this so far, and I'm ready to make some good recommendations.
Good. Allie.
Yeah, Holly Hemingway from Potlatch. Just got back from vacation. Happy to be here. So
Okay. Well, welcome back. How about you, Derek?
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, so this work we've been doing is it's reminded me how grateful I am that hunting's part of my family heritage and that I get the opportunity to hunt each and every year.
Thank you for that. Chelsea. Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah, get the headset out again.
We'll come back to you, Chelsea. How about Doug?
I missed the last meeting. I was sick, wasn't feeling well. So, I've caught up what I could on the notes and, trying to catch myself up and stay up. So I'm just looking forward to getting back in conversation with everybody and trying to mix myself in.
Good. Okay. Dylan.
Yeah, just looking forward to keep cracking through it. It's been good so far, so.
Okay, great. Matt.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, just excited to keep going through the process and look at these things. And, it's pretty important for our heritage to the way we was raised and the things we see coming into play now and some pretty important topics. So.
Thank you. Let's see. Order got flipped up a little bit. Jeff, I don't believe Jeff Choles. I always say it wrong. Whoops.
Yeah, it's good to be here tonight. Welcome, everyone. That's a phenomenal sheet. I just can't kind of focus on that thing. That's a great one. As I worked through that homework exercise, I was impressed at what we've done. I mean, I think that it's a great start that we've made, and I think most of the principles that we've got, I think they were certainly helpful for me to go through the recommendations. And I think maybe with a little bit more tweaking on those, I think we're heading in the right direction. I'm pretty proud of what we've done so far, and good to be with you all here tonight.
Thank you. Let's see. Ken Crane, are you with us?
I am.
Hi there.
Good evening. So yeah, similar to what has been said so far, I think we've made some good progress and definitely have more to do. And I think, reviewing those principles was a good exercise. I think they're foundationally good, but I think we need to remember too, we are not going to make everybody happy. I think we need to find some practical solutions that make sense, founded on these principles, then people will know where we come from, and hopefully, fishing or the commission can use them and make some progress on this.
Great, thank you. Larry Hatter?
I'm happy with the progress we've made. I'm getting a little leery of the fact that things are winding down really fast on us, and a little bit worried that we won't get to some of the meatier subjects, I would suppose we call them, that everybody talks about at the bargain store and at the tag vendor that are really a little more controversial. I'm kind of looking forward to delving into those, but we've done a great job. I just hope we don't run out of time.
Yeah, me too. Okay, Jeff Shin.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Just really echoing what a lot of other folks have said. I think, being such a diverse group and have so many different views that we have been coming together, and I think we have made some really good progress. And I'm just looking forward to continuing that. And like has just been said, I hope we got time to finish it up because it seems like we got a lot done, but we got a long ways to go.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Nicole?
I just echo a lot of what's already been said. I think through this process, it's impressed upon me how thankful I am to have the hunting heritage that I do and that we do collectively. I think we've had a lot of good conversations, made a lot of good progress, but I am also hoping we don't run out of time.
Common theme here. Chelsea, back to you. Is she here or did she leave?
Can you guys hear me now?
We can, yes.
Yay. Okay, Chelsea from Boise. I was excited about what we accomplished last time. I think we have a little bit we need to clean up and kind of polish this week, and I'm excited to kind of do that and then apply that to our next few topics.
Yay, thank you. Jeremiah, you're with us on the phone?
So I'm looking forward to this next meeting here. I know we're on a time crunch now. I just want to make sure that we don't make bad decisions for crunch time now. Last week's meeting was quite, in my opinion, just to find a little bit, but looking forward to the next one here.
Great, thank you. I don't think Jason Carr's with us. Does that sound right, Ellery?
Yeah, we don't have Kevin Rogers, Tim Frost yet, Nathan Guy, or Jason Carr.
Okay.
Oh, I just saw Tim Frost just jumped on, so 1 sec.
Oh, good. Make him say something as soon as he gets here. Can you hear us, Tim?
I can hear y'all.
Okay, great. We're just giving everybody just one sentence of how you're showing up, what's on your mind today.
I don't have a lot on my mind other than welcome to another meeting and glad everybody's here and the commitment everybody's put into this.
Okay. Well, we will pick up the others if they join us. And did you want to say anything, Ellery?
Sure. Just appreciate everyone's understanding for me missing the last meeting. Appreciate all that you're doing and all your commitment here. And I think you guys are making great progress. And I have high hopes for everyone to find some consensus at the end. So I won't take up any more time than that. And I'll probably have my camera off for most of this, just as I'm trying to wrangle things on the back end. So you don't see my confused, puzzled face the whole time.
Greg or Toby, want to say anything? No? Okay, great. Well, Ellery, you're up next. So do you want to share with us what's come in?
Yep. So just
people in the waiting room, did you know that?
Yeah, there's a few people. Let me add them in. Thank you. We have received to date 240 comments. That was as of 2/4/2025. 131 were from Idaho residents, 8 were from out of state. I realize that doesn't equal 240, so I think I missed a count somewhere, but I'll get that sorted for the next go around. But most importantly, since the meeting previous to this, we only received an additional 13 comments from folks. We did receive, I think, 2 or 3 more between the 4th and today. So those will be included in the next go around. Wendy, next slide. Perfect. And then again, this is just a visual summary of all the things that we've received to date. You all were provided with the verbatim comments that were received with the new ones highlighted. You can read those as well. But again, not a whole lot of change in the overall graphs that we see here with the addition of 13 comments. And anyone that submitted multiple comments were combined into one. Empty ones or blank ones were deleted. All that still rings true today. So we're doing it consistently throughout this process. So any questions from the group?
Okay. Did you see there was a question last time that I wasn't sure I had a good answer on? It had to do with this table and whether it meant does anybody remember the question that asked it?
Was I think the general question about it was it as many times as the item was brought up, or is that the amount of people that had brought it up? I think was the confusion of it, was the number of occurrences of that specific technology, or how many people had mentioned that technology.
Yeah, so again, you have your 3 different categories. Those who said that they supported, let's look at I don't know, let's look at trail cameras, for example. The blue is those who, the number of times that someone said, or that individual said that they supported trail cameras is in blue. Similarly with opposed, and green is support with caveat. So if someone said trail cameras 5 times in a comment, it still was only counted as once. So it's not total counts as far as like, you can't necessarily say, no, they back that up. So it's basically number of people who mentioned that they were either supportive of thermals or opposed of thermals or support them with caveats. But not everyone said that they said something about thermals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's what the confusion was. I could be wrong though.
Thanks for helping me remember. I just knew there wasn't a question. I knew there was a question I didn't answer very well. Okay, so we're going to move into our first work session. We're going to try to make sure that we polish up the principles that were drafted at the last meeting. We're going to go into small groups. And I'm going to share the feedback that has been received on each of the principles. And so I want you to take a look at that feedback and agree if there's any need for refining the wording. And then we'll come back and give you a quick opportunity to share the results of your discussions. If someone in each group could take responsibility for sending me the wording, I will listen to the recording, but it's not your words until I see them. So thanks for doing that later. So the first principle that we talked about was minimizing negative impacts on the principles that underlie the fair chase ethic. The group that drafted this came up with a definition for fair chase that is on this slide. Out of the 20 people that had completed their homework assignment by first thing this morning, 14 thought that the principle was exceptionally worded as currently exceptionally useful to you in evaluating your recommendations as it's currently worded. And 6 people thought that there was opportunity for improvement on the wording. So Doug, Jeremiah, Matt, and Tal, if you could take a look at that wording, and that's what you're going to be trying to polish up. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. So the next one, go ahead.
Are you did anybody actually send any information like as a text on what they'd like to see for the wording?
No, all it was you liked it the way it was worded or you thought it needed to be refined.
Gotcha.
Okay, so the next one was focused on minimizing negative impacts on Idaho hunting heritage and opportunity. That group crafted 3 questions that they suggested could be used to evaluate a recommendation. There were 13 of 20 who thought that the current wording was useful, exceptionally useful, and 6 people that thought it could be polished a little bit. So Dylan, Dustin, Kim, and Rob will be working on that one. And I'm going to pause a minute to let you look. I did send the slides this afternoon. Yeah, this afternoon. So hopefully you had a chance to think about things a little bit. Okay, moving on. Another principle was that you wanted it to be clear that the recommendations that you were making were reasonable. And so you that group came up with a definition for what reasonable meant. And that's what's on the screen right now. This wording was deemed to be exceptionally useful by 5 people, and 13 thought that there was room for improvement, and 2 people thought that this principle was not useful for evaluating your draft recommendations. So Alex, Bryce, Hallie, Jeff, and Kevin have your work cut out for you to try to improve on this wording. And remember, the purpose of these principles is to help you evaluate whether your recommendations are sound. So pause for a moment and let you take a look at that. Okay, the next one is the principle that Idaho Fish and Game will have an ongoing need to address future advancements in technology. And the group that worked on this identified what they thought to be 3 questions that could be asked about a new technology or an emerging or increasing technology. And that the answers to these questions might lead Fish and Game to doing a little further work. And so the approach was more of about how to look at things in the future. Chelsea, Derek, Jason, Nathan, and Nicole will tackle this one. 8 people thought that this was exceptionally useful as worded, but 10 people thought it needed work, and 2 people said it's not useful yet. So again, some more work cut out here. I'll give you a pause there, and we've got one more to look at. So the last one is you voiced an aspiration that your work as a working group would be seen as truly representative of the diversity of opinions that are held by Idaho hunters or the hunting community. So you wrote a question, you that worked on this one wrote a question that could be used to consider whether each recommendation was truly representative. And this is a tall order, obviously, because there's a wide range of opinions. But you want your recommendations to have the fingerprints that you've actually considered what people across the state care about. So Jason Top, Jeff C, Ken Crane, Larry Hatter, and Tim Frost will be tackling this one. 12 of the 20 group members that had done their homework by first thing this morning thought that it was exceptionally well worded. 7 thought that there was opportunity for improvement, and 1 person said not useful as currently worded. So Ellery will be putting you in your working groups, and you will have until 6:40 to do your work. I'm hoping this isn't a big lift. This is, you've already got a starting point, and it's just polishing it up. So come back prepared to share the results of your work and knowing who's going to send me the results. So with that, I think, Ellery, you can send people off to their groups. One group will stay here.
Yep, just for everyone's awareness, Jason Top, Jeff Chules, Ken Crane, Larry Hatter, and Tim Frost will stay here in the main room. Everyone else will get assigned breakout rooms. So here we go. And Greg and Toby, feel free to jump into any of the rooms that interest you. All right, recommendations that our representative Idaho hunters have added.
Are they gonna leave that? Are they gonna leave that screenshot up there or?
Wendy, you're muted.
Since you're here, I'll leave it up.
Thank you.
The other groups don't have that advantage, but you do. Ellery, I may go visit the other groups and share their words, share the slides with them. Is that all right with you? Oh, I can't do that and then keep this up.
Well, if
Okay.
everybody downloaded their stuff, they can have it right there with them.
Or you can take a picture of it. I saw somebody doing
Yeah.
that. No?
That's what I've been doing, is just taking pictures of them.
If you're all good, then I'm going to drop out and go to another group.
Okay.
Okay. See you in a while.
There we go. Now I can see people.
Yeah, wasn't sure if everybody was here.
Take notes
All
as
right.
we get rolling.
What was that, Tim?
I said I'll take notes as we get rolling here.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
The public perception side of this thing, in my opinion, I guess I kind of thought what was written in there was pretty good when I went through this stuff and looked at it. When we had our overview of our homework project. What I don't like is that they only show the public comment for a graph. They don't show the actual graph for the survey in each one of these. So anybody that logs in to watch this, they only see the one graph. To me, that can be confusing to the public. It'd be nice to see what the public actually decided in the survey as well. Because we know that we want to listen to all the comments and take that into an account, but they are and can be construed as bias as well versus the survey.
Well, I think the other thing too is, with regard to the working group, an emphasis on the criteria that was used. And it seems like that was given to us or conveyed early on, but that we make note of the criteria that was used when the selection was made for the working group. If there was a good distribution across the state, hunters, non-hunters, female, male, just what criteria was used so that the rest of the hunting public or those interested in knowing how this group was selected, that they have that information and understand, and can relate to that, to have an idea of who was on the working group. Is that I mean, that's the way I read this criteria, is that it is as we, and how to relate that principle to our recommendation. I would guess that as long as they know that and feel like that they're somehow represented, that maybe the recommendation that's given, that they feel like that it's concerning them as well. And I don't know. There was a few of these that some of them seemed pretty obvious. The words that were the principles that needed to be conveyed, but some of them, it just seemed almost a little abstract to me. And this was one of them that, as far as conveying that or weighing that against a recommendation, to me, it's just a perception that they feel like they're represented somehow through this working group. Is that what you all get from this principle?
Jeff, I mean, I think that the difficulty here that you're probably trying to summarize is there are some of the principles that we have that are kind of framework questions or framework principles that we're recommending a decision to be made and how to evaluate that technology. This is a principle that doesn't necessarily lead towards how our evaluation or the criteria of our evaluation. It's more of as the committee, were we thoughtfully taking into every possible consideration as we're coming up with a recommendation? And I think that is probably like good governance as a committee. It's, appropriateness as we're evaluating things, but I don't think it has, it's not maybe directly correlated to whether or not we have a specific recommendation for that piece of technology, which kind of creates the confusion and the perception piece of it. In other words, on one end, we have principles that we're trying to create objective criteria. And this one, we can reword it however way we want to reword it. It's a little bit of the perception of the committee, the makeup of the committee, how the committee was selected, and how the committee considers public information. And I think all we can do is say the process has been an open process, it's been transparent, and everybody comes from all works, likes, backgrounds, framings, and we've all done our best to do that. And so if this is a principle that's needed as, a consideration for the public to trust what's coming out of here, I think we just keep it simple and straightforward towards our goal of, working towards consensus and accurately viewing all public comments and our collective knowledge and experience.
I agree with that, Tim. I think you pretty much hit it right on the nail with that comment. There's a few other people that haven't went yet. Ken, did you want to say something?
Well, I was, just trying to think through my head how to articulate it, but I think you guys brought out the important points, and I think we just need to do what we can to demonstrate to everybody that we looked at as much information as we could and considered all the possibilities and the things moving forward. And based off all of that, our recommendations are the best we could come up with to be fair, representing data, information, and not just on what people are saying, but also, you know, the biological considerations as much as we can anyway. And just did a fair job of trying to get somewhere.
Who hasn't went? Larry? I think you're muted, Larry.
Okay, there I am.
There you go.
My built-in alarm clock's going off over here. He doesn't know that I'm on a Zoom meeting. I'm sorry. I don't know, you know, I think the most important thing that for the public to know, for everyone to know, is that our goal was to try to see Idaho, you know, the things that are important to us, opportunity, you know, to try to preserve that for generations to come, as long as our recommendations, you know, are fit that mold, and there's not a whole lot more we can do as far as making sure everybody feels like they're, um, you know, that their opinions have been heard. It's always difficult. Um, you know, as far as the surveys and the comments go, you know, I can ask one question and get one answer, and I can ask the same question and I can reword it and I can get a completely different answer. So it's difficult. It's difficult to deal, you know, with surveys and everything like that. We've got a tough job, and I'll give you an example of that. You know, I'll go down the street and I can ask somebody I don't know, hey, would you be willing to, you know, sacrifice some of your hunting technology? Every time I'm going to get the same answer, and that's no. And that's completely understandable. You reword it and say, you know, it looks like you're only going to be able to hunt every 5 years unless you sacrifice some of your technology. Would you be willing to do with it? And every single person is going to say yes. So we have a tall task, you know, reading a few comments and looking at a survey with questions just asked in one direct manner. So we're doing the best we can. You know, just do our best to let the public know that we're looking out for everybody and looking out for the future is all we can do. Wish I had more. Sorry. You guys covered it pretty well.
I think we're pretty much all on the same page. What it sounds like. At least out of this group, is there anything that you guys would like to change in the wording? Because that seems to be what we're being asked to do, or do you think the wording should stand as it is?
I think what hung me up was just that we represent entire Idaho, and I don't know, you know, listening to what everybody said was, you know, it's like, yeah, we want to hear what everybody says, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make everybody happy. And I don't know, do you guys feel that principle statement implies that, or that we're taking a serious listen and attempt to hear what people are telling us and providing input towards us?
I feel like it does imply that. I work in a government entity. I'm the director of the Road and Bridge Department up here in Bonner County. So I'm making decisions a lot that are not always pleasing every single person in the public, right? But we're trying to do the best we can with what we got and the actual information that we have. And that's all we can do. Same with this group. We're trying to make the best decision that we can with what we have in front of us. So it isn't like we have a whole lot of other tools to work with other than what we have right here. So I feel like it does represent that. You know, I mean, we're a small group talking for 2 million people. Pretty interesting. You know, there are about 300, and I think it was 369,000 of them are hunters in the state of Idaho or hold a hunting license. And then that survey went out to 15,000 people. So that's less than 5%, right? And then you got 2,000 people that replied. So there you are at 2.5%, a little less than 2.5% of the hunting population that we're trying to use data to make a decision. But all we can do is use that data that we have because we don't have any other data to use. So I feel like the wording works. Do you have a recommendation of what you would like to see in there if you wanted to change that wording? Because I'm open to any of it.
I don't. That's just that caught my eye, and when you have an all-inclusive term like that, it kind of leads to might lead somebody to believe that we're trying to include it all.
The only
Right.
changes I would make on the wording is just separate this into 2 sentences. So it's less of a run-on and it's more like 2 complete thoughts. So does each recommendation accurately reflect the data from the statewide survey, public comments, and our collective knowledge and experience? That's the first question. And then have we worked to develop unbiased opinions and reached a well-informed consensus guided by input from hunters across Idaho with the goal of maximizing opportunities throughout the state? That's the second sentence.
Well, that would certainly make it read better.
Yeah,
Well, you
I
know,
agree. That's a good catch.
10 seconds
the-
spare. Good for you.
so the principal statement, I mean, should that change a little bit? You know, to reflect, you know, something that like the majority or the main consensus of the Idaho hunting community, or I mean,
I think we're close
or
to
is that
getting there.
good?
Yeah, Jeff, I think what you're trying to accomplish, I think we're close to getting there. It asks, we're essentially asking it in that type of question framework.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We'll get a quick report from each group. Let's start with Bear Chase. Did you identify a spokesperson?
Doug.
Here, I'll just talk here. I think most of us were in the camp that we thought it was pretty well worded and useful. I think that one of the things that we kind of are stuck on is, you know, I mean, what we have there is directly basically from Boone and Crockett's website. There's interpretation there still for that person of what is unfair. You know, we say it's improper or unfair advantage. You can get down in the weeds and say, well, this what's unfair to you is not unfair to me. And there's really no way to take that out. But so we thought about adding just a little bit of verbiage that says that's still going to be open. Some of that can still be open for interpretation person to person. But for the most part, we all, you know, basically liked what is there already. Anybody else have anything to add to that? Those in the group?
So Doug, were we going to add that, the improper unfair advantage over the game animals?
I think so. Yeah.
I think we were going to, we wanted to add that. And then we also wanted to put that it was also grounded in personal ethics, you know? It's
Agreed.
still open-ended. It's ambiguous, but I think it makes, I think we covered a lot there.
Okay, so you'll send that to me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that. The folks that looked at hunting opportunity.
Is that us?
Yeah. I guess.
Okay, our group, we went a little heavy. Instead of having 3 questions, what our idea was is that they were all a bit repetitive on each other. And so instead of having 3, our idea was to cut it down to 1 question. And the question is, will this recommendation maintain our hunting opportunity and preserve our heritage and traditions into the future? Anybody else have anything?
Oh, I think that covered it. It was I don't know, it seemed like a fairly easy one for us to just condense into one question.
Okay, thank you. The folks that tackled the concept of reasonability.
Yeah, I'll jump in since I took notes for it. So a couple things we did is initially we went through what was proposed last time, and it became apparent there's quite a bit of redundancy within some of the language that overlapped other principles. So we tried to hone in a little more specifically on what makes for a reasonable recommendation. And probably need to wordsmith this a little bit, but really we came up with 4 questions or criteria. One is the recommendation supported by the best available science? Does the recommendation put undue hardship on the hunting public? Is the recommendation enforceable? And last, does the recommendation align with public input?
Okay. When we move to our second round of principles, the concept of enforceability will get tackled there as well. And we can take a look at whether it's necessary when we get to that point, but thank you for that. Any questions for this group about the approach they took for reasonableness? All right. Then how about the group that dealt with trying to address future advancements in technology?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yay. So we just had some minor polishing that we opted to do on it. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
So we did it in track changes. So we changed technology overriding or disrupting an animal's ability. Number 2, again, we made it slightly more legal friendly with health or viability of big game populations or species management goals. So just more specific. We felt that question 3 and question 1 were slightly redundant. So we opted out of question 3 to make it just 2 questions that are slightly more straightforward. So for the most part, kept what we felt was the overall intent of this principle and just tried to make it slightly more specific.
So this is perhaps consideration later, but some of these principles feel like they could become recommendations rather than just how you evaluate recommendations. This one in particular strikes me that way. So kind of put in the back of your head whether it's a recommendation or it's a principle for evaluating the other recommendations you're coming up with. So thank you for that, Chelsea. If you could send that to me, that would be great. And then finally, the group that got to work in public, the folks that talked about representation of Idaho public or Idaho hunters.
Jump in here. So this one on like representation of the Idaho public and Idaho hunters, I think it was a little bit like the the reasonableness group. It's a little bit of a perception-based principle more than it is, you know, a litmus test on whether or not we would actually want to see a change in that technology or regulate that particular technology. So we took the question that was already there and kind of simplified it, the sentencing, into 2 questions. So it would read, does each recommendation accurately reflect the data from the statewide survey, public comments, and our collective knowledge and experience? That would be the first question. The next question is, have we worked to develop unbiased opinions and reach a well-informed consensus guided by the input from hunters across Idaho with the goal of maximizing opportunities throughout the state? So we took and separated it into 2 questions. I think the core of it is trying to keep a wording that is flexible, that this committee, coming from a broad, diverse background from all parts of the state, did their best to come to a well-informed consensus and evaluate all the information that was put in front of us, recognizing there are always going to be limitations to the process, to the information, to the timeframes of how many meetings that we can have. And that's probably the best we're going to get when it comes to a perception principle.
Thank you very much for that. Well, thanks. That was a fast pass at the work you did last time. If I push you on to the next topic on the agenda, are you going to be okay? Okay. So now we're going to take a look at the draft recommendations that you came up with at the last meeting. Hopefully that comes up as a slide. We've got until 7:10 to consider the feedback and agree if you think there needs to be any changes. And then we'll come back and share again. So these have more numbers on them because you used all 5 of the principles to evaluate each of the recommendations. The thermal imaging group and the night vision group both did 1 recommendation, and the drones group reached agreement on 1 recommendation, and then they shared 2 possible recommendations which they had not reached consensus on. So I'll share the feedback that we got on the one they agreed to plus the 2 additional ones. So for thermal imaging, I color coded it a little bit to help you, and I won't read all the numbers, but there was pretty positive feedback with regard to how well this recommendation fared using the draft principles, but there was a few negative reactions, potentially feeling like, for example, the representation that the hunters of Idaho may not feel that this was a good recommendation from the standpoint of representing their interests, if that might be a way of interpreting it. But at any rate, so Derek, Hallie, Jeff, Kim, Matt, Nathan, Nicole, Rob, and Tal, you'll be working as 1 group, looking at this to see if there needs to be any changes to it. Moving on to night vision, again, pretty positive in terms of using the criteria for evaluating this, with a few more folks saying it doesn't look like it's really going to have an impact. Looks like Rob has a question.
Is the person, going back to thermal imaging optics, are the people that had an extremely negative reaction to that in the group that's about to get together?
Yes.
Thank you.
So on the modern night vision and thermal, the agreement that was reached at the last meeting was focused on night vision and thermal scopes that are attached to or incorporated into firearms. They did not tackle unattached, or they didn't reach agreement on what to say about unattached. So if you run out of things to do, you might want to focus on that a little bit. But so Bryce, Chelsea, Dustin, Jason, Ken, and Tim will be looking at the modern night vision thermal rifle scopes and the recommendation that came out from that group. And then, okay, so moving into the drones, you're going to be looking at all 3 pieces. So the same group, Alex, Dylan, Doug, Jason, Jeff, Jeremiah, Kevin, and Larry. The drones it's interesting because people evaluated each of the 3 differently. So this is the first recommendation, which is the one that was reached by consensus by the group that drafted it, was the recommendation of keeping the current laws in place. So you can see that there was some negative evaluations using the principles, and some that thought that this would have no impact, since it's effectively no change over current. So the two options, one was to change same calendar year day to 30 days before the start of big game season. I forgot to say something on one of these. I'll get back to it in a minute. But at any rate, a few people thought it would have no impact. A few people, or one person, two people thought it would have a negative impact, but largely positive. And then the third option is not a whole lot different, although it's slightly more positive. And this was changing same calendar day to July 1st through December 31st. So I would encourage you that are working on drones to decide whether you're moving forward with number 2 or number 3 and see if you want to make any changes. I need to apologize on Modern Night Vision. Is this the one?
No, one more back.
Oh, there we go. Okay, there was a miscommunication between Rob and I. You may recall that it said to proceeding the specific hunting season and the homework. He and I got wrapped around the axle and the word weeks was left out. So this is what the group had intended it to say. So for 2 weeks preceding, it should be preceding, shouldn't it be?
Preceding.
Yeah. So just so you know, that was a mistake that was made and what people evaluated. There was some confusion. 2 people didn't even respond because they couldn't tell what it said. So at any rate, does everyone understand what they're going to be working on? So we come back at 7:10. So you don't have a lot of time, and Ellery will send you off into your groups.
Yep, and just a reminder for the group, those in the thermal imaging optics breakout room. So that's Derek, Hallie, Jeff Shin, Kimberly, Matt, Nicole, Robin Tao. You all will stay in this main room and everyone else will go out into their breakout room. So here we go. Go on ahead, thermal imaging optics group.
Okay. You want us to start talking about it then?
Sounds like a plan.
Well, I guess one thought I had on it was that 2 weeks preceding. I think as far as enforcement, as far as what I was thinking, it should be a set date. So like July 1st on that. And also the verbiage of hunting any big game ungulates other than wolves. Or wolves wouldn't be in there, but that was my thought on it as far as a straight date. That way people aren't using that gray area to say, well, I'm hunting mule deer, but they're actually scanning other stuff before a different season. So if it's a cut and dry date like Wyoming did, it cuts out a lot of that gray area.
I agree.
So I was in the group when we talked about that, and we did bounce some options around. So it may be that we need to craft multiple. Yeah, the intent was just during the big game season, but knowing that that is so broad, and can change, that was the reason for that. But we did certainly look at some potential dates, as well as looking at just having thermal imaging optics in your possession while big game hunting, knowing that there would be people doing the multiple tag thing, right? Because it's obviously going to stay legal for wolf hunting, but for big game as defined in this exercise, if it's in your possession, that was another option we looked at too. But this was the one that we all settled on, so this would be a good one to, yeah, if there's some fixes in here. It was largely accepted though. I mean, 17 to 2 it looked like, so.
Yeah, and to Jeff's point, there was some discussion also about the time period going from like August 1st, the very first big game season, to the end of big game seasons, which Greg Wooten, correct me, is like February 24th. And as I read it and I worked on it, I'd rather go with the time frames now. But the concern of the group at that point in time is that went beyond the scope of our charge, which was just ungulates.
Mm-hmm.
What if we, one of the things that I looked at, and that why I put it as negative was the wording again with the 2 weeks before the season. But one thing that struck me that might simplify regulation through the recommendation would be possibly to mirror what we have on the drone recommendation, which shows July 1st through December 31st. And like Rob said, that's within our scope. I don't know. So that was a suggestion or a thought that I had.
That's what I thought also.
And I will take notes on this, by the way, for the good of the order.
Thank you.
Good man.
Appreciate it.
So the only dilemma that we kept running into in any way we look at the dates is, does this preclude wolf hunters that are out there not hunting big game from using them for when overlapping season? If they're prohibited in the field, or are we going to be specific while hunting big game, and then it would be it's in your possession kind of thing?
And that's one of the reasons why I was one of those people that put a negative on this, is that I think this is totally unenforceable. There's no way. We heard from Greg Wooten that they can't even ask you if you have one or ask to look at it. If somebody's out there hunting, they can just say they're wolf hunting. I just think it's totally unenforceable, and I don't know that it's really supported by any data either. So when I went through the criteria, it was hard for me to give this one a yes.
And Hallie, I appreciate what you're saying completely. We struggled on this. On the enforceability, the question came down to the group is, and this is Greg Wooten's comment, that 80% of the public will follow the rule. Is 80% participation in following the rule good enough?
Yeah.
And then number two, I lost my train of thought, sorry.
Well, I mean, I guess I want to add one little thing in there is, for the expanded methods of take for wolves, which this group isn't dealing with wolves, you have to go get a permit from regional office to do that. So if you don't have that permit in your hands, then you shouldn't have a thermal image unit at all. I mean, and I guess the other point I wanted to make is, they're not necessarily cloven hoofed big game, but there are big game animals in the state that, we can hunt year round. So.
Hey, Toby, Tal here. Hey, how does Colorado do it? Colorado does this, and that's why we implemented those dates from July, I think it was July 31st to January 31st, and then Utah adopted the same dates. And there's another state as well. How do they do it? I'm asking about the predator issue, which wasn't our scope, but they have those dates in there. It's illegal to have that tool in the field and use that methodology between those dates. After that, they allow them, but you can't. I don't think in Colorado. I think Colorado, they're pretty much outlawed. But at least for big game hunting, it's July 31st to January 31st.
And just, I mean, obviously people can look at the reg books, but we have elk seasons that go into February. So
Sure.
Yeah, once that covered it, yeah, that would be fine. I mean,
Cal, I also want to just add in comparing Colorado to Utah to what we do here in Idaho, they don't have wolf hunting in those states.
No.
Oh.
So,
Gotcha.
so
Gotcha.
it's
Not even close.
different.
Gotcha.
And then just a point of consideration for the group, if the time frame that you're talking about is where kind of the hitch and the giddy up is, an alternative that you could always do is make a recommendation that says essentially addressing the thermal, but then deferring to the commission to determine a season.
Yeah, you said that anyway, that we were gonna, that was part of their deal is how they were gonna handle it. We can't come up with that.
Right.
But we
It is an option that you could do if the timing is where the
Right.
hitch and the giddy up is.
Right.
You could say we want to look, we recommend a season for thermals of which to be determined by the commission. And then the commission can look at all these different factors and determine what makes the best sense for Idaho as an option. Right. Or you could come up with a season if you all think that that's doable and you can find a happy medium, great, but just trying to give you all the options on the table.
Yeah. Well,
okay,
I like
so
the dates.
Yeah.
let me jump in here in since we're running out of time. Could we throw out the language July 31st to December 31 with the knowledge that the commission could change that? Is that good enough language to address the proportion of the group? Hallie, understanding that enforceability is a little different here.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I hate to be the rock in the road, but I'm having a hard time getting behind this. I really am, because it's not enforceable. And I don't think it's going to have any impact at all on wildlife populations, on hunter success. I really don't. I'm just having a hard time.
Did you look at what the percentage of Idaho people on the survey said about thermals?
Yeah, I've looked at that. There's a lot of people that, I mean, I think I told Kimberly at our last in-person meeting that, you know, when I got put on the group, I thought I'd have a lot of locals come and talk to me, and I did. I had a lot of locals come and seek me out and talk to me. And I expected a variety of opinions, but I didn't get that. I don't want them to take my stuff away. That's what I got. And they said, and this is a direct quote from one of them, he said, they better have a damn good reason to take my stuff away.
Well,
let me finish. So,
yeah, sorry.
You know, if I had been shown that statewide hunter success rates are rising, wildlife populations are suffering statewide, I think a lot of hunters could get around that and come together. But when we see what we saw, what we were presented with, I'm having a hard time justifying this type of recommendation. So
I think that's what we need to get back to. The whole premise of this group is that recognizing that we either need to limit technologies, tags, or season lengths, right? I mean, that was kind of the premise behind this. And I think that also, I mean, I think that we got a lot of information, and statistics can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I think one of the things that I took home from that was we were keeping things relatively stable in the harvest and the population, but we were making a lot of adjustments to account for some of this in the system already. So we were and are placing limits. We're capping tags. We're doing a lot of those things to account for a lot of these unseen things that would include the technology. But yeah, I think that this one for me was a driver because it was just simply so supported by the public. All of the things we have. And yeah, I mean, I just even read an article in the latest North American Hunter magazine, and it talked about hunting in England with the use of thermals and how effective they were. And they said this wouldn't be considered fair chase, but it was effective for culling a herd, right? And to me, that was like, huh, okay, that was a lights on moment. But
yeah.
And Hallie, to your point about not losing tags and not changing opportunity, I don't see it as a question of that. I see it as a question of, is it defensible in the court of public opinion when 80% of this state is non-hunters? And they see thermal technology, the people I have talked to, it's indefensible in that
Horrible.
80% of the non-hunting, and I'm not talking anti-hunting, I'm just talking non-hunting public. And that's where just the counter argument to what you're saying, Hallie.
Sure.
I will
mean,
say
we
that
can agree to disagree. That's for sure.
Matt?
I will say to Hallie's comments, I have had a lot of people from the Salmon Shallows area call and talk to me about it and say, if I'm walking in the Frank Church, this is not an easy subject to tackle because they're going to have their thermal in their backpack, right? And so as far as enforcement, it is going to be a tougher job. Their enforcement officers are going to have a thermal to catch them in a lot of ways, in my opinion. And they're going to be, if you walk in the Frank, say you get 6-8 miles back in there and you're scanning looking for wolves, but you also have an elk tag, it does make it difficult for our officers. And I get that, right? And you're playing both sides there. So there is some gray area on this one in certain areas, northern Idaho and in, say, the Frank. Spots where there is a lot of wolves, right? That's all my comment.
I think it's important too that we don't, no offense to Greg and his team, but we can't always rely on enforceability to guide us, right? We as hunters need to guide the narrative and they can help enforce the rules. So that's the way I look at it as well.
Hallie, nice job defending your position. I want you to understand that.
Yep.
Well, thanks.
Thanks for the openness.
Yeah, this is a difficult one. There is no doubt.
It seems like it's one of the most polarizing. Like people that I've talked to anyway, it's like they're way over here and way over here. It's not, there's nobody going, oh, well, I don't know. You know what I mean? So.
And I'm seeing the exact opposite.
And for me, I look at this one also in the light of, advancements in technology and what's coming, because a lot of argument can be made now that, well, they're not that effective now, but I mean, give it a year or two. So, and that's part of what we're charged with too, is looking at how, as this technology advances, to kind of get ahead of that curve. But my opinion.
They're pretty effective.
Get everybody back together again. And we just have 10 minutes to share the results of those discussions. How about if we start with night vision?
Night vision, us?
Yeah, Dustin, you want to do it, or you want to give the update?
I will do my best to try to sum it up, but stop me if I mispronounce something. The thing we basically came up with is, I think for the most part, the reason why we have it pretty split evenly is for what people's reception of it is there's confusion between handheld optics and mounted optics. And people get confused between infrared, night vision, and actual thermal. So what we would like to see is put those two groups of technology together. And if they can't go together, then make the ruling concurrent for that entire batch of technology. I believe that's what we basically came up with the idea of. Because that's really the only way you're going to get a square thing. You can't say thermals are okay or night vision's okay, but not necessarily thermals or vice versa, because they both are going to have the same potential impact on the hunting. Anybody want to correct me that was in my group?
I think you said that really well, Dustin.
I do too.
So I'm hearing that you think that the recommendations should be consistent between the two technologies. Did you have a recommendation for what you would like to see?
So basically, as the recommendations stand right now, right? Nothing attached to or incorporated to a rifle. but add some sort of verbiage to include a handheld unit as well, or all technology, however that would be worded out specifically would be something to kind of polish up a little bit more, I think.
Okay. Thank you for that. How about the drones group?
Okay, so I'll summarize that one. So, Wendy, unfortunately, like that email I sent you, that the first one of the options was, I think that was a misinterpretation.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I just want for the group, I just wanted to clarify. So we were not actually proposing the first option there of leaving it the same. We wanted to change it. And then so of the three options that there were, the first one we didn't want. The second one, we decided to go with the third one, which was the January or July 31st through December 31st. So, and we were looking around, and we were trying to put it into words how we felt on it. And Doug found Wyoming's, and it was like exactly what we were looking for, interestingly enough. So I'll just read that off real quick, and then I'll send it to you later. But no person shall use any aircraft with the intent to spot, locate, and aid in the taking of any game animal. And we changed the dates to July 31st through December 31st of the following calendar year. Nothing in this section shall apply to the operation of an aircraft in a usual manner where there is no attempt or intent to locate any game animal, such as aircraft used for the sole purpose of passenger transport.
Love it.
Thank you.
I'd
That
hear
made it a lot easier.
So the difference being is we took a step further than drones. That basically encompasses helicopters and fixed wing airplanes. It's basically everything.
Thanks, Larry.
Good job, Larry.
Thank you.
Question here. I've been trying to raise my hand, but I can't find the darn thing. But so I agree. I like your changes totally. However, we do have big game seasons extending into January down here on the desert. So how do we want to change the wording a little bit so it just includes all big game seasons? I believe that's your intent, but just a question.
We can go to January 31st. I don't want to speak for the whole group here, but I really don't care.
You can split that up. I would say probably for all big game seasons, because we've got one that goes until the middle of February. It's a very small controlled hunt, but it is 75 to 100 tag depredation hunt that goes until the 15th, I believe, of February. So it might be better just to state it like he said, inclusively of all big game seasons.
Yeah.
Regardless of crossover, because that's going to be a pain.
Rather than specifying, then you would just refer to the whatever the season is.
Greg, do you have any input on that?
For big game seasons, for the stretch of big game seasons.
Yeah, this is great. At some point, you're going to have to. Our big game seasons basically stretch almost the entire year, and
true.
So we're going to have to define something, or the commission will have to choose something at some point. Because wolf is a big game animal. They're all season, and we do have big game seasons that start as early as August 1st.
Yeah, that's not part of the scope, but yeah, I agree with you though. I think that we kind of discussed that too in the group, is that just come hard dates, and if there's a couple seasons, I mean, we're like you said, we're talking about maybe a couple hundred tags in the whole state. So.
That's true.
So.
Or we just go for purposes of hunting or scouting for big game. They are banned completely year round.
That might
Can I just ask a question? Oh,
go for it, Hallie.
Yeah,
sorry.
We're not gonna have a lot of discussion time here, so go ahead.
Okay, I just was gonna ask the question: Are people fine with people scouting for game outside of the seasons? That was my question.
Well, that was Hallie. This is a good question. So again, people in the group, if you want to clarify for me, go ahead. But we originally, like last week when we put this, or last time that we put this together, that was kind of the intent was to leave the spring open. That if you wanted to use stuff, use a drone or, early summer, then that was kind of the intent to leave it open. And then for the actual hunting seasons to not allow it. So that just to kind of lay that out. Hopefully I worded that the way the group thought last time.
Okay, we have one more group we need to hear from, thermal imaging optics.
Yeah, I'll get us started here. There was like the drone group, there was a lot of discussion about instead of the 2 weeks preceding the specific hunting season to a time frame of just the hunting seasons, July 31st, a closure from July 31st to December 31st. There was a lot of discussion about that. But I don't think we got anywhere because of concerns about our thermals actually impacting big game populations, and two is any thermal rule enforceable. And anybody in the group, if I didn't get that right, chime in, please.
Hey, this is hard, isn't it? So we're going to take a 5-minute break. And then when we come back, we're going to take a look at some new draft principles that were suggested by you in the homework assignments, and then close out with looking at more recommendations on technologies. So if you could come back at 26 minutes after, please.
Okay, Harry.
Ouch. Okay. Okay.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay. So we are now, the homework assignment asked if you thought that there was additional principles that we should be looking at, and there was a few suggestions. And I tried to put you together with folks that think like you to do this. So we've got up until 7:45 to draft new principles if you think they're called for, and then share your results. So the 5 that I identified, this is the assignments. I want to give you a look at the assignments first, and then I'll define what is meant by these principles. So Dylan, Jeff, Nathan, and Rob will tackle fairness. Jeff S., Ken, Kim, and Matt will tackle recruitment. Alex, Doug, Hallie, and Nicole, enforceability. Bryce, Chelsea, Dustin, Jason, Larry, Tal, and Tim will look at, the word I've got here is adaptability. I'll explain that better in a minute. And then reputation among non-hunting Idahoans, I've got Derek, Jason, Jeremiah, and Kevin. Now to give a little bit fuller explanation about what these principles might entail. Fairness, the suggestion was that you as a group should be fair to all groups of hunters. So not pick on one group of hunters and not the others, but also on game populations. So try to make the recommendations that you develop fair. Recruitment looked at the potential that recommendations might affect the recruitment of new hunters and youth hunters. Enforceability, I think, speaks for itself, looking at whether the recommendations would in fact be enforceable. Adaptability may have a little bit of overlap with some of the stuff in the first set of principles, but looking at whether the recommendation could be adapted over time, depending on what is seen in terms of fluctuations in populations of animals. So is it a one size fits all for a specific level of population, or is it something that could be adaptable? And then the last one is knowing that the hunting regulations in the state of Idaho are scrutinized by non-hunters, whether any of the recommendations would negatively impact on the reputation of hunting and hunters to the rest of Idaho's population. So those are the assignments. Anything's acceptable. If you think this is a new principle that's covering ground that hasn't been covered by the other principles, come up with wording. If you think it could be adopted into one of the prior principles, that's fine. If you think it's not worthy of consideration as a principle, that's fine. But these were ideas that came up in response to the homework assignment about things that people felt were not yet being addressed. So with that, Ellery will send you off into your groups.
Yep, and then just for the group, Derek, Jason Carr, Jeremiah, and Kevin, you will stay in the main room. Everyone else will be assigned rooms. So here we go.
Hola.
So Derek, Jason Carr, Jeremiah, and Kevin, have at it, gentlemen.
Not sure I'm in the group. I'm seeing the same screen.
I'm in. I can't do video.
Yep, Kevin, you're in the correct group.
Okay.
I don't think I got moved.
I'm just not.
Matt,
Oh, there. Okay, I see you, Wendy.
Okay. He should
There
be,
now I see a handsome fella.
he should be in the recruitment group, Ellery.
Yeah, I'll get it sorted right now. Just give
Okay,
me
thank
someone
you.
else on with your conversation.
All right, so I guess looking at the potential new principles to use in these draft recommendations, do we feel that we need to, I guess, establish one that deals with reputation of hunting amongst the non-hunting public, or do the principles as written incorporate this?
My input, this is Kevin, is that, and I missed the last overall meeting, so I apologize for that. So if this was covered, forgive me. But I really, really like the principle of fair chase. And if we can repetitively use that language throughout the fishing game regulations, as a precursor to whatever the regulation, like for instance, in 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 the spirit of fair chase, or that this regulation is whatever. So the non-hunting public might see that Idaho Fish and Game and the hunting community value fair chase. And so it may seem pointless, but sometimes words matter.
I agree a little bit to that, but I think the big thing is for non-hunters, they want to make sure that things are hunted ethically and humanely dispatched. So I think in combination with the fair chase, we definitely want to add some of those words, the humanely and cleanly, things like that.
Yeah, right. Like you could say, like if you're not going to specifically regulate long range hunting, you say in the interest of fair chase, a hunter should, look at I don't know how you would word that, but look at their skill set, and make certain that their choices would be ethical and humane in the harvesting of Idaho big game.
I agree, because that's going to be the big thing is from a non-hunter that's good. That's what they're looking at. They don't want us killing animals, but if we are going to kill them for food, then we need to dispatch them cleanly.
Do you feel like
and that's not something you can clearly regulate. I mean, a 12-year-old with a lever action 30-30 on his first hunt may or may not be as effective at 50 yards than a skilled trained marksman at 700 yards, so you can't say what range is okay, but you can say you have to evaluate that for yourself as an ethical hunter, and Idaho values your thought process and wants you to consider that in the harvesting of big game.
I mean, I'll be honest. I think that's maybe getting into the weeds a little too much. I think the Boone and Crockett statement, as far as fair chase, obviously they've thought about that and delved into the non-hunting public. So I don't know. I lean more towards not necessarily needing additional principals to consider draft recommendations. I feel that our fair chase component is not only covers the hunting public, but the non-hunting public. But
Yeah,
that's
I
my
agree. And that's what I was saying too, but I don't think the Idaho Fish and Game regs say anything about the Boone and Crockett principle of fair chase. That's why inserting that language might be of value.
Right, but again, these are principles that we're utilizing for this exercise.
Okay.
I'm correct in my thinking, right, Wendy?
For current
So you-
thinking, it is to guide you in your thinking. You may decide you want to go farther with the principles than that. But for now, yes.
Yeah, so the question to this group is, do you think a new principle, do you think it is appropriate to draft up an additional principle for consideration that specifically speaks to the reputation of hunting and hunters amongst non-hunting Idaho residents?
Okay, then I was confused. Yeah, I agree. The principle of fair chase as stated by Boone and Crockett, to me, hits the nail on the head. Are we together or something, or did I glitch out on you guys?
No, I've got you, Kevin. So I'm in agreement. I understand the intent of our existing principles. I think they incorporate that without having to draft another principle and get more into the weeds. I think to me, I understand the intent of the existing principles and what we're trying to achieve. And so I don't feel that we need to add anything more, at least from my perspective or opinion, to that to help me draft existing recommendations or potential new ones.
Okay. Yeah.
It seems like the direction that the reasonableness group went adds credence to that, because you've got the fair chase, but you've also got a commitment that you're going to be reasonable in what you're recommending, and you're attempting to represent the hunting population in that discussion. So it feels like, kind of taken together, a case could be made that is in fact protecting the reputation of hunting. I hope I didn't say too much there, but
No. Jason, are you in the group? We haven't heard
I
any
haven't
comment.
seen him on this call tonight.
Yeah, Jason Carr has not joined the call this evening, so it's just Derek, Jeremiah, and Kevin.
Oh, okay. I see Jason Toomer. Okay. He's not on our group.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, then the principle that we already were working with was the principle of fair chase as defined by the Boone and Crockett organization, and we don't see the need to add additional principles. That's our guiding light.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's a perfectly acceptable outcome of this discussion.
Okay.
I feel it's adequate.
Well, there you have
it. Now we get to twiddle our thumbs for a few minutes. I'd let you.
Yeah, I don't know how
I'm afraid it would not help them.
I'm just chatting now, but I don't know how the Fish and Game would weave that conversation of fair chase as articulated by Boone and Crockett, but it seems like in somewhere it could be stated in bold type in the regulation, and then in all the hunter safety. If you just keep repeating a theme over and over, eventually it will become an ethos, and that may be our only hope for that part of this to be a guiding principle for all hunters.
And Kevin, there could be an opportunity to, Wendy and I have talked about this, but you're kind of touching on it, because in addition to the recommendations of the group specific to technologies, the group could also make a recommendation, because it is very much connected, make a recommendation about expanding education related to fair chase. So that, I think that could tie into your concerns about the regs or hunter's ed, but just kind of making a general recommendation specific to
Right.
increase.
I for one would really would support and appreciate that effort by the Fish and Game. There's some things you can specifically regulate, and there's other things you just have to teach as a guiding principle. And I think that as technology advances, some of these guiding principles are just going to have to be core values or be, and they're not always enforceable by a rule or regulation, but they can be drilled into people's heads, so to speak, over time, and maybe they'll make a difference.
I mean, yeah, I agree, Kevin. I mean, the proclamation booklet's already so dang long, but maybe it would warrant even having a page in there after the director's message of those tenants.
Yeah.
I mean, besides, the educational piece of getting the message out, but it's there in front of everybody. Again, it's another page in the proclamation, but I certainly agree that getting that word out or information and helping people understand that as a teaching mechanism is important.
Yeah. And it always takes money and so forth, but social media, a well-crafted infomercial with a Idaho rugged individual that, to make that statement known that is a principle that we hold dear, and we want to see everyone, try to do their best to follow it.
You may remember that was similar to what they did in Arizona.
I didn't
Way
remember
back
that.
at the very first meeting. I think it was the first meeting.
Yeah, where they defined fair chase and made it
Did a social media campaign around it.
Yeah, I think that's money well spent myself.
So going along the education piece that you guys were talking about, do we have anything for Idaho? I have not seen it. Almost like a core values, like what our values are as a hunter, to include all that stuff. Because that's easy to promote if you have some actual core values to what we're supposed to be doing for hunting.
If there is, it's so poorly disseminated that as a 35-year veteran of Idaho hunting regulations, I have not made aware of it.
Yeah, because I know when I was military, core values were like shoved down our throats like big time, where it was the integrity and all that stuff like that prior to, that we learned that from basic all the way through. So maybe we should do that. That's a pretty easy campaign for it.
Yeah, that's a perfect parallel too. At the end of the day, it's you and you alone that decides what's the right thing to do in a combat or whatever situation. And if they really made it known that they wanted you to follow those principles, you knew that it mattered, and that's something, a campaign that could be waged to try to educate the public.
Right.
Might
I
be
mean,
wishful
for so many years, our state has been very similar and not had a lot of change. Well, obviously, we've had a dynamic population change over the last couple of years. Arizona, I mean, they have to beat on that drum because if I'm correct, I think they're like the second most urbanized state in the nation. And so they have to constantly craft that message out because the non-hunting public is definitely quite a bit more than their hunting public.
Oh,
And our
makes sense.
dynamic is changing. And so I think it's timing's probably perfect to, put some emphasis on that. Besides where it's just, I think it's probably touched on in the hunter education platform, but obviously that only goes to a small segment of the hunting public.
Yeah, kind of like a motto, I think that would go a long ways if you keep pushing that.
Yeah, instead of Idaho the potato state, it's Idaho the fair chase state. No, it's that's one of those things that won't happen overnight, but if everybody's on the same page in promoting that over time, it can make a difference.
Wendy, you're still sharing your screen.
Oh,
by the
am
way.
I? I'm sorry. Looking ahead. Hmm. Thank
So
you.
were we supposed to draft something up, or are we just kind of discussing it?
Well, I think you agreed you didn't need a new principal, right?
The principle, if I'm summarizing it, has been well articulated by the Boone and Crockett organization, and that's the principle of fair chase.
Well,
Right.
this group has a principle already that it's basically the same thing, but own it locally here. You've got a principle. Well, they're going to be back shortly, so.
Yeah, we got about a minute 15 left, so.
You're welcome to go ahead and let them know you're thinking along the lines of the education piece though, too.
Yeah, I think that'd be real valuable just to
Yeah.
say that to the rest of the members of the group, that while you don't necessarily think that this topic warrants a whole new principle,
yeah,
more aligned with an education recommendation or a public education recommendation related to fair chase.
Kevin, do you want to be point spokesman on this? You want me to?
If you feel like you've got this dial, go for it.
Okay, I'll do it.
Thank you. I'm never at a loss for words, but sometimes I'm too windy.
Okay, I think everybody's back.
Almost. We got 10 seconds before group 9 or one group gets booted back. All right, Renee, you should.
There they come. Okay. Well, welcome back from round 3 of our 4-round workout tonight. So each of you had another principle to discuss, and if you'd like to share the results of your conversation, that would be great. We'll start with adaptability.
Anybody in my
When
group?
the other guys talk about the adaptability, just to make sure I don't blend too many words.
Justin, you're so eloquent, though.
Loquacious is something to be.
Tal, do you want to go?
Do I want to tell them what we come up with?
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm just terrible at this. Well, we wanted to introduce, and this was something that Larry and I, was talking about with Chelsea. We like the way she, or that group, actually refined it to 2 points, and it made a lot less redundant. And just if we could get the word opportunity in there, because I think that's pretty important to people in Idaho. And it's important to keep things kind of the way they are. And it's what separates us from other states. So it was important for us to do that. So we tried a couple different things with putting it at the end and putting it in the front. And then I got kicked back to the groups. I would ask Tim and Chelsea.
Yeah, so we felt like adaptability kind of was in parallel with this ongoing need to address future advancements. Those things went
great.
kind of hand in hand. And so rather than coming up with yet another principle to follow, we sought to figure out how do we marry these two together and kind of fold them in. And some clarification by some of the people who had brought up adaptability when they answered their homework questions had talked about how do we get these to mesh with changing populations in such a way that it doesn't diminish hunter opportunity, which is something that we all identified as being a common ground in the first few meetings. And so we looked at how do we wordsmith that into explicitly stating in our principle that a reduction in hunting opportunity is something that we don't want to see. Team, did I articulate that sufficiently?
Nailed it.
Yeah, you hit it right. You did it good.
Yeah, I think you stated it perfectly. And before our group terminates, I think there may be some opportunity to elaborate on this subject a little bit once we get some other some other rat killing done. we can look at some potential ways to maybe make some recommendations through this group on how we can, what we can recommend in the future to, to help out this subject, but also, keep the seasons open to where, you can take your kid out every year, make memories as opposed to, shutting units down and, the boy might get a tag every 5 years type thing. I think that's what we want to avoid at all costs.
So
Yeah.
just to make sure I'm correctly understanding, rather than creating a new principle, you revised the principle about continuing to deal with advancements in technology. So this represents the work basically from both rounds. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so you can send this to me, Chelsea?
I can do that, and I can even keep version control if you would prefer from the
No,
multiple
I want
different
your
iterations.
final. I want your final. I don't care what. I'm not interested in the work as much as the results. So
Okie dokie.
thank you very much. Okay. How about fairness?
Okay, I'll do that. So, fairness group, feel free to jump in after this, but basically we saw fairness as bringing as many to the same playing field as possible instead of giving a few an advantage over the rest. So inherently this group is doing things that could be considered to be unfair because we're putting restrictions or suggesting restrictions on certain things. However, in order to look at it in the right light, we believe that if we are restricting certain things, to use an example, be LiDAR, to be drones or thermals. Normally that's by the survey is represented to be a few. So we're representing the majority by suggesting something that would put regulation on those. So we are bringing as many to the playing field as possible, the same playing field as possible, instead of giving advantage to few.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Thank you. And you'll send that to me, Dylan?
Yep.
Okay, great. How about recruitment?
I volunteered to bring forward. We had a very similar conversation. I think recruitment obviously is important to maintaining the heritage, but we didn't feel like we needed to make a separate principle for it. I think we can work it in with the principle. Let me maybe share my screen. Okay, did you get principle minimize negative impacts?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we don't have the edited version from the previous effort on here, which we thought was good. But if we could just add into that edited statement that's there to bring in the fact that, we want to, that we are, and Kim, maybe help me, you had something good there and I did not get it written down. So I'm losing your effort.
Well, I had just repeated basically what our edited thing was, which was maintaining our hunting opportunity and preserving the tradition and heritage into the future. So, but I didn't have it exact either because I wasn't the one that wrote it down for the group, but.
Okay. But we felt that just tweaking the wording in here or leaving as it is even was suggested that we're talking about preserving our heritage and traditions into the future. And that's really implying that we are want to maintain these opportunities that we have, the frequent opportunity to get a tag, to go out, to take new people out to witness and experience this. That was addressing some of the recruitment. And
okay. So nothing new is really necessary. The revised version of this from the previous session will stand in for this recruitment point as well.
everybody in our group agree?
Yeah, we think it we think it fits.
Okay.
Yep.
Might be a little bit of a tweak, but
Okay.
not, yeah,
Okay. Well,
We
you're
just-
making the effort to try to make sure it's covered.
yeah.
How about reputation of hunting? Is that you, Derek?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was thinking it was more the non-hunting public, but yes, reputation. So
Oh, yeah.
thank you, Wendy. So Jeremiah and Kevin and I discussed this at length. We felt that no additional guiding principle was needed. We felt that the fair chase component, as we put together with the backing of the Boone and Crockett statement, was adequate enough. And without trying to get totally into the weeds and putting some language there that may alienate some hunters. So I think it's adequate as it stands. However, we did have lengthy discussion that we feel that the department could do a better job of the educational piece on this, whether it be via something published in the proclamation, social media campaign, billboards that would help this be more visible to not only Idaho hunters, but the Idaho non-hunting public. And so it's probably something the department should consider and maybe spend a little more time and focus on as our state dynamic changes via population of immigration into the state from other areas. And so, yeah, we just felt that we just didn't need an additional principle to kind of mire up the process.
So no new principle, but the kernel of a new recommendation, which definitely at the January meeting, there was a lot of emphasis on the need for education. So that's consistent with your prior work. Okay. Enforceability.
I can go. Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead. It was pretty quick. We just said it's already covered in the revised, which one is it? It's the
Reasonability.
reasonability, yes. So.
Okay. Okay. Did we come up with nothing new then? It was all, we've got the right 5 principles with some revisions.
That seemed really validating, actually.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think the editing that was done earlier on the original principles kind of helped with some of these things.
Okay. All
Hey,
right.
Wendy,
Yes.
I'm not sure, but I thought our group, the fairness that we were talking about, I don't know that it was really covered
Oh, okay.
in
Okay.
the
But
principles
Dylan's
we
gonna
already
send,
had.
Dylan's gonna send me something, right?
Right, right.
Okay. Okay. Bad note taking on my part. Thank you for that. And the reminder to Dylan. You can see why I'm so reliant on all of you. Okay, we're going to move into the final part of the meeting. And this is where you are going to have the opportunity to tackle the last 4 technologies that I'm sure we're going to cover. Who knows after that? Artificial intelligence, smart optics, transmitting cameras, and transportation. And these are the next 4 in terms of order of your ranking as a working group as to what you thought needed to be tackled. So you'll have until 8:35 to draft these recommendations and then come back and present them. So for artificial intelligence is opposed by 91% of Idaho hunters. And you ranked it as number 5 in importance of the 17 technologies that you ranked. The example given was AI that can identify hidden animals in the field by or by sound signature. The current situation is that artificial intelligence is unlawful when it's attached to or incorporated in a firearm, but it is lawful when it's not attached to or incorporated into a firearm. The small group that will tackle this topic is Jason, Jeff, Matt, Nathan Guy, Nicole, and Rob Thornberry. The second one is smart optics. And these are optics that automatically adjust scope based on data which is received from a smartphone app, smart rangefinders, or binoculars. This was ranked number 4 by you as a working group, and it's opposed by 63% of Idaho hunters that participated in the survey. The current legal situation is that smart optics are unlawful when they're attached to or incorporated in a firearm. And scopes with battery powered or tritium lighted reticle, I don't know how to say it, reticles, are allowed. Reticles, is that what it is?
Reticles.
Reticles. If you need to prove
said
that I
it
don't
right.
know what I'm doing here, right? Neutral facilitator. So Alex, Bryce, Chelsea, Derek, Ken, Larry, and Tal will tackle this one. Transmitting cameras, cellular or Wi-Fi cameras. It was ranked as number 6 by this group, and they are opposed by 48% of Idaho hunters that participated in the statewide survey. Currently, transmitting trail cameras are lawful. The group that will tackle this is Dylan, Dustin, Jason's not here tonight, Jeff, Jeremiah, and Kim. And then the last one is transportation. This one, it was included because 2 of the working group members put it as a number 1. So some of you felt that this was important to tackle. It includes things like ATVs, UTVs, side-by-sides, and e-bikes. It was ranked as number 7 by the working group as a whole, but only opposed by 31% of hunters in the statewide survey. So this one's a little more complicated. The current legal situation is there's a motorized hunting rule in the state, and the bullets are representing what I copied them from the regs, along with a map that shows where they apply. So Doug, Hallie, Kevin, and Tim will tackle transportation. Any questions about your assignments? So this is starting from scratch on these 4 technologies. What do you think you'd like to recommend as a group? And come back at 8:35, prepared to share your results with your colleagues.
Wendy, I have a quick question.
Yes.
As I'm on the transmitting cameras, I see on the public comment feedback in there, it's called trail cameras, not transmitting cameras that people replied on. Is that correct? Was that a naming difference, or should it be transmitting cameras that was in the public comment?
Transmitting trail cameras is what the survey called them. I just put a bad label on it.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to
Labels are
clarify.
mine.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Valerie will send you off.
Yep, I'll send everyone off, and then for folks that will be staying in the room, it will be the transportation group. So that's Doug, Hallie, Kevin Rogers, and Tim. Everyone will be assigned to groups. So here we go. And Wendy, if you want to stop sharing your screen.
Oh, good idea. Thank you.
And Doug, Hallie, Kevin, and Tim, take it away.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Hallie. So, since I missed last week's group, but I guess this is a new topic for us to discuss. Maybe I'm not behind like I was on some of the other subjects, but I think this one to me is an important subject, and probably something more than we can tackle in just what little time we have here. But I can't think of a technology that's changed more in the last 30 years and made a greater impact than the widespread use of all-terrain vehicles and general road hunting in general. So the only reasonable thing I can see would be to expand the motorized hunting rules that exist in southern Idaho to a larger portion of the state. What do you guys think?
Before you get too far along, make sure you identify someone to take notes.
Okay, I'll take notes.
Okay,
Thank you, Allie.
thank you.
Kevin, I agree with you that, motorized use is a huge problem. I thought a lot about this, and I'm having a hard time thinking of a way to address it. A lot of those motorized hunting rules areas, it kind of aligns with the motorized use of the public land in the area. And, like say northern Idaho, there's a ton of open areas for the Forest Service. It's open to UTVs, ATVs, and then there's a ton of private land, which those landowners basically just get to decide how they want people to use the land. But I agree with you, it's super frustrating, and I haven't been able to think of a good way to address it
Yeah,
myself.
I agree. It's a subject all by itself could consume this entire working group's
It really
time.
could. Yeah.
But I just think it's as far as an impact on maintaining opportunity, it shouldn't be forgotten because I think it probably impacts things more. I mean, there's study after study show that roads, just the sheer existence of a road, you know, affects big game movement and all that. And if it's a road you can actually drive down, then it can affect it even more. But I'm really stuck and at a loss as to know what to recommend
And
to. I mean, it'd be easy to say, expand the no access, but you talk about a red hot chili pepper that might get the public in an uproar, start
Yeah.
closing more roads. I mean, in a
Yeah.
way, in North Idaho, they're doing that by not maintaining them. In a way, a pickup truck can't go down a road. You can't take a horse trailer up a road any longer, but you can sure take a razor up it at 40 miles an hour. So,
I mean, I don't know if it makes sense or even is worth our time to do, but maybe we could just kind of give a really broad recommendation to consider changes to.
what would you think of the following? Like, if we just said, as part of the working group, we recognize that um, expanding modes of transportation have and will continue to have a profound impact on the sustainability of wildlife populations. And without a specific recommendation, we recommend that the Fish and Game address that by offering some restrictions to motorized travel, whether it's
Yeah.
Revising the Forest Service and BLM land, transportation maps or however they see fit, but just not addressing that seems like missing a good opportunity to make a real impact.
It's Kevin, you and I have talked a little bit about it. It's, to me, again, yeah, like, I don't know, there's a technology that affects the animals more and gives people maybe an unfair advantage than the access that is out there right now maybe not in all areas of Idaho, but definitely in some. Very hard to enforce. I look every year, multiple trails, roads that are, have been closed off, or just people don't follow that non-motorized rule. They have to see them to be able to enforce it, and they know that they've got a big area, and it's just pretty hard. It's rampant. Makes for not very good the enjoyment level in a lot of times could where you just run into. I mean, you can hike, you can do whatever, and then someone comes along on a close trail or road on a machine, and it's tough. But if everyone can have rifles that shoot 1,000 yards, and you have ability to go up every ridge on a machine at some point, animals just can't get away. And for whatever reason, doesn't seem to get a lot of traction. You know, I don't think even in our group or you know, the public surveys, not something that I don't think gets a lot of traction that people want to get behind. They enjoy being able to go wherever they want to go, and I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have a lot of money invested in horses and side by sides and four wheelers. You know, it is like I don't want to cut off my own nose to spite my face, but it needs to be addressed to me, anyways.
So I've thought about this. There's several. I can think of several different places and areas where I hunt here where the roads are, you know, when I'm meaning roads, I mean I think 90% of it now is for four wheelers and side by sides, right? But
Yeah.
it is technically a road that you could go on in a pickup if you really wanted to. But you know, it's open all year long for recreation, all summer, even into the fall. And in these two areas I'm thinking about, on September 1st, roads get blocked. I mean, there's a little gate that goes and shuts the road. And I don't know the system because they're Forest Service. And so obviously the Forest Service is working with the Fish and Game to some extent, but it provides a lot better enjoyment in a lot of those areas.
Yeah, I can I can help a little there.
Yeah, would you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we've been working on this my whole career.
Not to discourage you or anything.
Yeah. But I mean, it's significant because the number of registered ATVs and motorcycles in the state has quadrupled in that time. And I don't think it's gonna slow. It has slowed a little bit, but all those vehicles are going to be registered. So this is a pretty difficult issue just because of all of the jurisdictions that are involved. So not only do you are hitting the nail on the head with the Forest Service. We have in recent past started to make some headway with boots on ground coordination with forest districts to try to help them understand where we need areas where animals can have some escapement and not be invaded by motorcycles or ATVs. So we're having some headway. We're getting some progress there. That's been difficult. Our motorized hunting rule started back when the forest didn't have any travel plans at all. So you could drive a motorcycle off-road, off-trail, anywhere in the forest. And since then, the forest has nationwide adopted travel plans that restrict all travel to designated roads and trails. So that was a big step. BLM, even just this summer on 4 different BLM districts have implemented travel plans. So they're starting to dial into this issue as well. And mostly they're trying to address just overuse by recreationists, not just hunters. They're just receiving so many complaints about the overuse. So, so you take the federal managers who, in my opinion, have started to address this. Some of the travel plans since we started have been updated. Some of the districts that didn't have any travel plans at all have implemented new travel plans. And it's up to the individual user as to whether or not those are adequate or not. That's the big challenge. But on top of that, you throw in 44 different counties. So we have counties currently that are unwilling to prosecute our motorized hunting rule because they just simply disagree that taking a four-wheeler up a trail is no different than me taking my truck from camp to a trail. So they don't agree that a motorized vehicle is an aid to hunting. Unless you're shooting from it, then then they can see that. But we already have other laws that allow us to address that specific violation. So I mean, we're working on that motorized hunting rule right now. in areas where we think the forest travel plan is adequate to lift it. So there's not two layers of rules on a specific area. Because where our motorized hunting rule applies, that's in another layer on top of the federal regulation, and it does not apply to recreational riders. And it does not apply to people who want to hunt grouse or coyotes. So there's a lot to it. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I hope that helps.
Well, I appreciate that, and I guess if we can do nothing else in this group, it's just recognize that that's an important subject, and continued work in that regard would be, you know, much appreciated.
You know, Wendy brought up something that I hadn't thought of until today that I really I feel like I can really get behind, and then that is to, you know, we've developed these these criteria or ways to judge different regulation ideas that we have, and to actually use those as a recommendation to the commission for them to judge their decisions. Does that make sense? So maybe we, you know, we say, hey, we'd really like you to address the overuse of motorized vehicles during hunting season. You know, we're not sure how, you know, all the ins and outs of that, but we could use these criteria that we've developed to inform a decision that you might come to, or something like that. I don't know. Just an idea.
Yeah, with this one, I think that might be as general as we can get with it. It's just kind of like it's not exactly like, you know, the people that argue both sides of the long range shooting. And I mean, at the end, how do you really put something in place that polices that specifically into, you know, today of the technology? And so, but it sounds like, you know, with Greg's talking there, definitely something I know they're aware of. That's great that they're making some inroads with the different agencies, and I like to hear that. I also think someone told me, maybe it was Matt, that there is another committee meeting about this specific issue, you know, outside of ours. So again, I don't know that we really have got much traction with this in ours, but even if it's just a general recommendation of continue to make as many inroads as you can, because again, I really see from a hunter enjoyment and you know, far-reaching effects, there's just nothing out there that affects it like it.
Let me float this one. How about would we feel as a group whether we could say as a consensus offer a statement that says, you know, the hack group recommends to the Fish and Game that they consider expanding the closure of roads and trails on, you know, the beginning of big game hunting seasons where, you know, it would be deemed to have the most impact in terms of preserving opportunity. You know, just expand on what they already do in some areas. And granted, there's BLM, Forest Service, you know, all that. But as a guiding principle, we are recommending that they expand the restriction of motorized vehicles in a greater amount of areas.
I don't want to contribute to your thinking because I'm your facilitator, but I would just point out that Fish and Game can't close roads except for on property that's owned by the state of Idaho.
Well, most of Idaho is, you know, is state or federal, so
but I'm saying they can't do anything on federal land.
Yeah, it would have to be a recommendation to work with partners to encourage more roadless, or I mean, not roadless, but encourage less motorized use or something like that. I don't know.
Just the state doesn't have the authority to close roads on federal land.
Yeah, that's correct.
Or maybe there's some, you know, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's what I was alluding to with we're making some headway. So our agency has to work with those or the ranger districts and make suggestions and recommendations. We can't close it. And then sometimes we're making some headway where they actually do implement some closures at our recommendation.
And I mean, another thing that might, I don't know, this is just another idea popping in my head, so you can shoot it down if you like. But So in our neck of the woods, there's a lot of ground that's owned by corporate timber companies. Maybe some incentive for them to have closed roads. I know a lot of them are starting to close them anyway. But there are still some that leave them open. So I don't know. That's just another idea.
I think Tim's in our group. Tim, do you have any thoughts on this? One way or the other?
Well, I think if we wanted to make a broad statement, we can make a broad statement. I've been working on typing one while everybody's talking, but I guess my opinions on this, I struggle. And it's not from the hunting side. The hunting side's easy. I don't like, I mean, I hunt an area that I mostly am going into wilderness area, but everywhere around it has you know, dirt bike access, and it's one of the best places to dirt bike probably in the world, and for sure is one of the best places in the state. And so I'm not shocked at all when people want to use the fall to dirt bike through some of the most beautiful country in the world if dirt biking is their thing. So on one end, as serious as I am about archery elk hunting, you know, I married into a family of dirt bikers. I don't own a dirt bike. I don't ride a dirt bike, but I understand like they live, eat, breathe, and sleep it. And so, that public land is just as much their right to access it is to mine. And so I kind of view road access as a local issue. I think it's like very localized to like what area of the state are we talking about? Maybe down to like particularly what trail are we talking about? And I think those are, it's like what I would call trade-off conversations. There's trade-offs in every single one of these. Sometimes the trade-off is helpful to the hunters. Sometimes the trade-off is helpful to the hikers. Sometimes the trade-off is helpful to the vehicle users. Oftentimes nobody fully wins in this conversation, but I sincerely think road access is a local decision more than it is a statewide decision. And my assumption is Fish and Game sincerely does work on a local level before they make decisions like this. So I'm in no way saying that, you know, things are arbitrary, but I just don't think we can carte blanche, you know, shut off trail access in a way that is thinking about even half of the other stakeholders that would be impacted by accessibility on public lands.
Yep, well said, I think.
Yeah, it's a muddy, complicated issue. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I'll tell you what
encouraging.
I typed. You can tell me if you like this or not. I just said advancements in motorized access enhance hunter opportunity, but must be managed to protect wildlife populations. Increased access can heighten hunting pressure and habitat disruption, impacting wildlife behavior and distribution. Idaho Fish and Game, in partnership with the authorities having jurisdiction, should work to balance accessibility with conservation by promoting fair chase and sustainable hunting through strategic access management.
Bam, you're a
Wow.
wordsmith. Good job. Thank you. That was perfect.
I really appreciate Tim talking about, you know, working at it on a local level. You know, I appreciate that, you know, to try and, if we do even make a recommendation, I'm still on the fence whether we should or not on this. It sounds like it's kind of already in the works, so maybe it just muddies the waters for us. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing up that it really should be a local issue, not something that we try to implement statewide. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's where I'm at with it. Like it might be the one I'm most interested in, but at the same time, I don't know if it warrants a recommendation even just because of how complicated. I mean, I know they're aware of it. I mean, just like Greg kind of talked about, it's something that they are looking at. So, you know, I don't even know if it justifies a recommendation as what are they going to do with it? You know, if we give that to them, what are they going to really do with it? Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably kind of it might be a waste of our time to go back and forth on wording and everything on something that maybe they're already working on, or, it's such a complicated issue.
Yeah.
But, to Tim's point, we're experiencing in the field uh, change socially in fall where it's family oriented, and some of those families are motorized users, and so only one person in the camp actually has a deer tag, and he will go deer hunting. The rest of the family jumps on their motorcycles and they go ride and enjoy themselves, just like. So we're definitely seeing an increase in that over the last 5 years, especially after COVID. Um, so you hit the nail right on the head, Tim. I appreciate your statement. It was very well worded, and I certainly, my family does the same thing. So I go deer hunting, and my wife and kids ride the four-wheelers. So I would hate for those trails to be closed or those roads to be closed.
Yeah, I personally, I think if there were arterials through large swaths, like in North Idaho, to get you in general areas by motorized vehicles that are scenic and fun places to travel. But the branches, the single track trails that drop deep into the prime habitat for the wildlife are the ones that are most probably impacted by hunters and non-hunters. Just, that those engines going through their living room. So, I mean, I get it, people want to use them, but if it's making a severe impact, then it should be addressed. And I don't know how we do that. I just feel like it matters.
Yeah, I think that's where Idaho Fish and Game at the local level is working with those districts to find those areas to specifically what you spoke to, Kevin, and try to make recommendations on some seasonal closures.
In very specific locations, the ones that would help the most. Yeah, not the whole area, but like you said, those guys, the local guys on the ground, the biologist and the Forest Service managers can all put their heads together and say, okay, riding around these, logging roads are not as big an impact as dropping a single track through this deep, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. They could potentially exclude some trails that would make a big impact while still leaving a lot of opportunity for recreation.
It wasn't really clear to me whether what Tim had written was objectionable to you, Hallie.
No, I think what he wrote was wonderful. I'm just wondering, I guess, if it's worth, because obviously if we put this forth to the group, then we have to go through revisions and it's going to take up our time. And if the Fish and Game is already doing this, if they're already working with Forest Service, if they're already doing what we were hoping they're doing, I guess I'm fine either way. I'm just saying, I think maybe it would take time from other issues that maybe need more time. I don't know. That's just.
We could run it through the process of evaluating and see if it's supported by people, it won't take more time.
Yeah, I think it was a well-written it was a very well-written statement that just touches on a difficult subject and lets the public or the commissioners know that we consider that worthy of their time and effort to refine.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Doug? What did you think?
Yeah, again, I mean, I think it's very important. I don't know how to. I question whether it's worthwhile putting that recommendation out there, where it's just something super broad that, it's not super actionable, I guess. And again, it's weird because, like, to me, I've stated it. To me, it's probably the thing I would love to see the most traction on there. you know, I'm grateful that their Fish and Game is addressing that and they're aware of it. I wish we could make quicker strides on it, but I just don't really know from our group what we put out there that really accomplishes anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like the group so far has thought that's a key point to really address. Tim, could you maybe read again what you said?
So it's advancements. I made an adjustment on it based off of local. So advancements in motorized access enhance hunter opportunity, but must be managed to protect wildlife populations. Increased access can heighten hunting pressure and habitat disruption, impacting wildlife behavior and distribution. Idaho Fish and Game, in partnership with the authorities having jurisdiction, should ensure decisions are made at the local level, recognizing the trade-offs for all stakeholders on public land. Access policy should balance opportunity with conservation, promoting fair chase and sustainable hunting through strategic management.
Yeah, I like that. I'd like to see that at least put in front of the group and hopefully put forward as just a principle.
Mm-hmm. I can see the value in that just coming out of the group to the commission, like, hey, this is important to us, so I could see the value in that. I'm fine with putting it to the group. And if it's, I guess to me, if it's like an easy win, if it's like everyone's like, yeah, we're on board, sure. But if it's gonna like take a bunch of our time or something.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, the group will have to decide where to put your energy, and it might not make the top list in terms of effort, but if it's easy, yeah, okay.
But I definitely agree that it's like one of the biggest problems.
Yeah.
It's just really hard to address it, so it's really tough when you're out there and people are hunting from their ATVs. You see them sitting on their ATV at 30 minutes before dark. It's just it's tough. And I know there's not enough Fish and Game officers to go around, so it's tough.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, a common theme among all of the whole committee, every group we talk about, we talk about opportunity, the ability to go do it. And at some point you cross that line of unlimited general tags, people that can go anywhere just about on these machines, rifles that'll shoot a whole long ways. And at what point the scales are tipped pretty far at the advantage of away from the animal. And at one point, in my opinion, something has to give in that, whether it's opportunity in the form of how many tags are given out or whatever, season lengths, whatever. So it's something I really would love to be addressed. So I'm fine putting that forward. I like that.
Okay.
Good job, Tim, on that.
Well, you guys
Tim,
have
thank you.
3 more minutes. So. Did you have something in there about working with partners?
Yeah, I just said Fish and Game in partnership with authorities having jurisdiction. I mean, it gets to the reality that so much of this, the particular decision and designation of a road or access to the road probably doesn't fall within the grasp of Fish and Game. So,
but I like that too, because, like I said, in our area, if there was, I work for a private timber company. So Fish and Game came to Bennett Lumber and said, hey, there's this area. It's where the elk are hanging out. Can you please just close this road to motorized? We would of course do that. So I'm just saying it. I think that is a good encouragement, and maybe I'm sure it's already on their mind, but it's just another level of like, hey, we think this is important too. So.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a perfect example of where that could be put into action. They would have to indeed come to Bennett Lumber and have that conversation, but if they can supply, good reasons for it, there could be compliance, and then at the end of the day, it might improve opportunity and the fun factor of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do have a motorized working group that has been working on this for a few years, and we've done a significant survey. The large tracts program, the legislature has passed state code that allows us to enforce motorized restrictions on those private tracks where we're in an agreement. So is it where it's should be? I don't know, but so we're making baby steps, little incremental successes.
Good.
Well, see everyone come back in a moment here.
You have about a minute and a half.
Okay.
So ironically, just since I have 30 seconds, or you have 30 seconds, so we surveyed 7,000 people, and we only surveyed those people that participate in a unit that has the motorized hunting rule. And 75% of those people wanted to retain that rule. So they're
Oh,
thinking along the same as your discussions are, so they don't want it to go away.
it's interesting. Um,
Thirty painful seconds while we wait.
I think we're getting the hang of this.
Yeah, we've got a few seconds. I'd like to say that I'm impressed with this group. It seemed like I don't know, Chinese arithmetic when we first started. It seems like through your guidance, we've been able to, make some meaningful statements and sentences.
oh, we still got a long ways to go. So, well, welcome back, everyone. Looking forward to hearing the results. How about if we start with artificial intelligence?
Great. That one was a really hard discussion for us. We're a bunch of old people trying to figure out what all is AI, because there's a lot of stuff that rolls into AI. We were looking at the example that they had on their, well, let me pull it up on my phone so I can read it, so I don't get it wrong. So in the example on there, it states that AI that can identify hidden animals in the field or by sound signature. We were trying to think, what does that mean? Does that mean like if you're using a pair of binoculars, is that like with a rangefinder, is that considered AI? What is considered AI with it? So what we looked at was going with any and all AI that can identify hidden animals with thermal in the field or by sound signature would be unlawful, period. So it wouldn't be attached to a firearm. It could be either or. It would just be illegal. I don't know how we're open to listen because we're not the youngest people in this group that was in there, and we would like to hear from you guys too, what your thoughts are.
I got a question for you, Jason.
Yeah.
So hunter's game here, or shooting protection, the electronic shooting protection, is that under your guys' interpretation? Would that be encompassed in that or not?
We
Just
would
curious.
say no, but it's up for interpretation. That's where we were struggling really hard with this.
Yeah.
Like I use the Walker game here. I'm deaf, and it helps me out. It also silence for shooting. I mean, that's something I do use, but we didn't want to. We're trying to figure out the best way to put this. It's a very difficult one, actually. The AI is.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I can shed some light on what AI is, if that helps. So,
Yeah.
so basically it's anything that you can feed it a ton of information, right? And then you can ask it questions. Okay. So, for instance, I too struggled with it. I don't know exactly where this one came from because I don't really understand. The only AI that I know of that would be part of the hunting world at all is there's two things. There's some binoculars that you can look through and they will tell you what kind of bird you're looking at. Okay. So they're for birders. They see the bird through your binoculars and then they pop up what the name of it is. Okay. The other thing that I know of is there's an app, there's several apps for your phone where you can kind of feed in all of the, weather conditions, topography, things like that. And it'll tell you, well, maybe the animals are right here. But it's not, I don't think it's anything that is very accurate. I'm not really sure about this seeing hidden animals thing. I haven't seen any of this technology that's listed here. So
I haven't
I
either.
think
The
this
only
is
thing I
more
can
future.
think of is thermal.
Yeah.
I think some of it too might be like the Merlin Bird ID or the Seek apps that are asking you. Like, I love going out with my Seek app and identifying plants and bugs. I've never tried to use it on big game, but it's because I know what big game are. So I honestly couldn't even fathom a guess. But I could see again maybe people trying to use like the Merlin app or something for calls. Um, as being one means of using AI. I think this is one that's definitely, it requires a little bit of like forethought into how are some very creative individuals going to use it. Um,
About like a scoring system. Would there be a
oh,
program you would be able to use and go, oh wait, no, that's only a 168 buck. Or oh my God, that one, because there's a lot of guys that'll look at a 160 and think it's a 180 or whatever have you. But
I
would it
want the
be
patent for
possible to
this.
use something of that? Because I know there's AI for fish measurement, or what I would consider AI programs for fish measurement. Would there be a way that they would be able to utilize that as a way of discriminately killing, I suppose? Would that lead to more larger animals being taken, not necessarily now, but potentially within the shortcoming future? Because I mean, it's only been the last 5 years that we've really heard about AI. In the last 3 years, we're like, holy shit, it's coming, right?
I mean,
So
yeah,
maybe this is
Jaguar.
looking down the road a little bit more, another 5 years, when we have damn near autonomous guns.
That's
Yeah,
a really good point.
another thing I would be concerned about too is the like information collecting services that sell that information. Like if they have access to fishing game helicopter surveys or whatever, as they can compile these massive bits of information about animal movement or success in very specific, that they would be able to disseminate that information to the public and sometimes for dollars. As that, like Google Earth right now is getting better and better and better as far as what it can see. Someday we may be looking at a world where the very movement of wildlife is tracked by satellites, and if you can pay enough money, you can get that information.
A
I
sub
don't know.
three
That's
inch a sub 3 inch ground sampling distance is standard right now from satellites with a 16-day turnaround. And privately, you can get sub-inch resolution data less than 24-hour turnaround. It's just a matter of how much you want to pay for it.
yeah, and it'll be a matter of time that'll be cheaper and more available, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
Hunt and Fool will sell it as the next component of their subscription.
So in the interest of helping you finish at 9 o'clock.
Right.
Sorry, this is a really hard one.
Clearly there's a lot to talk about here. I don't think we're gonna, I didn't hear a draft recommendation yet. Is that correct?
Well, I feel like our draft recommendation may not be the correct one right now. I think it needs more work.
Okay,
Let
and
me,
that's totally
More-
fine.
more people.
let me real quick, Wendy, real quick. So shared with you all previously, which I can recirculate again, so it's top of your inbox, was the AFWA, Association of Fish and Wildlife Agency's white paper on various technologies. In there, they identified artificial intelligence, such as advanced trail cameras and acoustic devices that can detect bugling elk, and AI can help distinguish large bulls based off of sound signatures. So that's one example. And then I can also link it to an article, again, by Boone and Crockett, and circulate to the group that kind of dives into this topic and gives a little bit more context for the group.
So,
Sure.
we can do
I was-
further work. We've got 3 more groups to hear from in 10 minutes. So, smart optics.
Yeah,
Hey,
I'll
guys,
jump in.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is pretty short and sweet. Our recommendation is to keep the current regulations. So smart optics or anything outside of battery powered or tritium lighted reticles are not allowed. So, yeah, that's pretty much what our recommendation is.
Okay. Thank you for that. Transmitting cameras.
Okay, I'll go quick here. For the purposes of hunting and scouting for big game ungulates, no transmitting trail cameras may be used from July 1st through December 31st on public or public access property.
What was your dates you came up with?
July 1st through December 31st.
And so your recommendation is that they be prohibited in that time frame.
Yep.
Okay.
No transmitting trail cameras may be used from July 1st through December 31st on public or public access property.
I don't
Any
know.
questions for that group?
I guess when you start putting it out there for that, you're not only talking about what our scope is for the elk and the deer and the moose. You start putting it on the predator side too.
Well,
Yep.
A lot of the predator hunting that we have is in July and August and September. And they like to have those, especially if they're running hounds. They like to have them so they can identify if they got wolves or anything else in the area there to coming into the baits to help keep their dogs safe.
So I would say like we did talk quite a bit about bear baiting and like wolf trapping. Those were kind of the two big, well, trapping in general, but because I'm with you on that, Jason. Was a concern as well. But this is specifically for the scope of this for our group. If we have a transmitting camera on a bear bait, that's obviously not elk hunting, right? If you have a transmitting camera on a wolf trap, that's obviously not, elk
So you're
hunting.
talking specific to what this group's.
I'm talking about specific
Okay.
to big game ungulates under the scope of our working group.
Okay.
And I outlined that in the email that I wrote you to, Wendy, just to make
Okay,
it clear.
thank you. All right. So we have one more group to hear from, transportation.
You want to just read that statement?
I think this is to Tim.
Yeah, I can jump into it. So we came up with a broad statement. I'll read it and then I'll give some context. So advancements in motorized access enhance hunter opportunity, but must be managed to protect wildlife populations. Increased access can heighten hunting pressure and habitat disruption, impacting wildlife behavior and distribution. Idaho Fish and Game, in partnership with the authorities having jurisdiction, should ensure that decisions are made at the local level, recognizing the trade-offs for all stakeholders on public land. Access policies should balance opportunity with conservation, promoting fair chase and sustainable hunting through strategic management. So we had a pretty broad conversation around like the realities of the non-motorized hunting rule and the reality that depending on where you're at, what unit you're at, what trailhead you're at, you're going to have personal opinions on hunting access, what can be utilized, what types of motor vehicles can be utilized. But I think ultimately like there was a broader recognition. One, this is shared jurisdiction between, sometimes Idaho Fish and Game has primacy, but more often than not, there are other entities that determine road access and travel corridors. Next, everything is certainly on a local level on the trade-offs of the various different stakeholders that care about and use these roads. And so it might be easy to say no e-bikes or no ATVs X, Y, and Z here, but that's not really pragmatic on the realities on the ground, and recognizing that it's also public land. And just because it's the best time for hunting doesn't mean it's also not the best time for recreational use for other individuals on the trail. And so this is a pretty broad recommendation. It does not go down into a lot of specifics of teeth, but I think it highlights more broadly that as the hunting community, we do care about the impact of advancements in motorized access, and we want Idaho Fish and Game to continue to partner with the authorities that have jurisdiction to make some local level decisions of where it's appropriate to have, thoughtful decisions when it comes to that.
Okay. You did a lot of work today. There will be another homework assignment. We will have 6 principles, 1 new one, and 5 that were polished. And you'll have, how many do we have? 7 recommendations? But I'll see what comes in. This is not an exercise in do you like this recommendation? That's not what we're doing here. What we're doing is we're looking at the draft recommendations and seeing if they meet your principles as a way to identify where we might need to do some more work on the recommendations. The step of deciding whether you like them and want to make those recommendations is not yet here. So do the homework assignment again with the refined definitions of what the principles are and the new plus improved recommendations. Please do your assignments soon. I had 2 come in today and it was really hard for me to do all the calculations again for the slides. So please help me out by doing them early. Any questions on that?
Would the 6 be early enough?
Yes. Let me.
I can try to do it earlier too. I just leave in 4 hours on an airplane.
Okay. The next meeting, that'll be fine. The next meeting will be March 10th. It's an online meeting, and we're gonna be seeing where we are in terms of what we've got. If the recommendations are meeting your principles, then they'll be ready to look at. I'm not sure where we are really right now, but we will just keep moving along. The final meeting is on March 22nd. You may recall that when we set the schedule initially, it was later than that, but we've moved it to March 22nd. It's a Saturday, an in-person meeting so that we can be in front of when the commission will be taking a look at your recommendations. And as a reminder, your recommendations, they're looking for consensus recommendations, so what you can agree to recommend. It'll be something less than the whole universe of recommendations because it's going to be only that stuff that you agree to move forward with. So that's where we are. Any big picture thoughts you can't leave without saying?
And Wendy, just to be clear for the group, it says on the slide, if needed.
Yeah.
And it appears that it is in fact needed. So ignore the if needed part.
Yeah.
What's the time period on that one? I've got tickets to the sheep banquet that day in Boise, but I'm curious on the times on that meeting.
It's the same times as our normal. What is that?
I
I think
can
it's,
pull it up online. I think it's like 11 to 4 or something
that's
like
what
that.
I was thinking too.
Pull it up real quick.
What time is your banquet?
I'd have to look at those times for sure. So
Yeah, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Is it possible to do it earlier? The
earlier in the
only
day.
reason I ask is when it gets done at 4 p.m., the next flight that comes out is 11 o'clock at night. So we end up sitting at the airport till 11 o'clock at night to fly home. And then we end up leaving my house by 2:30 in the morning to get there. So I'm like, I'd rather have the meeting at 7 in the morning if we could, so I could catch a flight.
I'm
'cause they have a
certainly
flight
willing to
over.
explore options. That I think the goal was to try to have people be able to leave and get home in the same day.
Yeah,
But-
I'm leaving at 2 in the morning and getting home at midnight.
Yeah, I recognize it's bad for you. So are other people interested in having us explore a different time frame on that day?
I'm in North Idaho too, so yeah, earlier is fine.
Is there a question for those in North Idaho who are commuting that far? Is there earlier flights that you could take, or would you come in the night before, or what does that look
We get into I want to say I fly in usually by about 7 in the morning on there.
Well, no, the flight I took in, it's like it arrives in Boise at 9. Right? That's the one the first one you were on with me, it came in at about 9. We had like a couple hours before the meeting started at 11, but I don't know that there's one earlier than that.
I'm gonna pull one up.
And you have an additional homework assignment, which is to explore your traveling options.
Okay.
And then we'll try to put something together to look at options for that day.
I mean, I usually spend the night after the meeting because I'm not gonna get home at 11 and drive over a pass to go home, so.
I'm totally flexible. But we want to have as many of you as possible, obviously.
Our flight would get there at 8:20. I just looked it up, FYI.
What time would it leave in the morning?
6:15.
That means I'm spending the night in Spokane the night before too, so.
Okay, we will explore options. I'm not going to make a commitment that we're making changes right now. So, okay.
So I have plans for a banquet that evening in Pendleton, so I was earlier would be great for me, but I have the easiest travel, so I'm not going to complain.
Okay.
There's a flight home at 6. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that would be nice, is to be able to get on that flight at 6 coming home. That's all I'm looking at.
Okay. All right. Anything else that needs to be said today? Well, thank you for your hard work today. And I will see you on March 10th.
All right.
March 6th is okay for a deadline for homework. Just don't go 7 or 8 or 9. Okay, thanks.
Thank
you,
you.
Wendy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.